you ready, Dr. Khan? Here we go.
Thank you, everybody. It's basically really an honor and a privilege to be here and to be with all of you. I mean, we have some fantastic people who've done some really pioneering research. I mean, I feel humbled. I'm a clinician and a surgeon, and I basically rely on the research and the studies that are done by a lot of my colleagues around the world, and, to do the thing that I do, and also learning from my patients. But before I start, I actually, if you could just indulge me, if everybody could just get up for me, please, just get up. It'll allow you to stretch anyways, since you've been sitting all morning. And you know what? I really think that this is a fantastic thing. The whole Visual Snow conference is just fantastic that the organizers, that all the way from Sierra and Paul and the rest of the team have done. And before I start, I wanted to give all of you guys a standing ovation for being here and for doing this. So please, let's just clap for everybody that's here. Congratulations, and thank you so much for being here. Because, I mean, I was actually going to do this at the end, but then I said, well, that's going to mean that you're giving me a standing ovation. I didn't want that. So I thought I'd start with thanking all of you for being here. So, Visual Snow, basically, knowledge is power. And isn't this what this conference is all about? It's basically knowledge. So Kofi Annan said something which really struck me. Knowledge is power. Information is liberating. Education is the premise of progress in every society, in every family. And this is really about society and about family. So I think that this is a huge first step towards really capturing the essence of Visual Snow and helping people who suffer from it. Let me tell you a story about how I came into Visual Snow. And I call the story, It's Just Floaters, which is probably the most common, or one of the most common complaints that any ophthalmologist gets in their office. And so, in Canada, there's a doctor shortage. I don't know how it is in the US or the rest of the world, but we have a big doctor shortage. There aren't enough of us around. So we see about, anywhere from 75 to 80 patients a day. It's a lot of patients to get through. And you often have only about 5 minutes per patient. And you got to get through because otherwise you'll be there till 9, 10 p.m. at night, and that's not sustainable. So in the midst of an 80-patient clinic, a couple of years ago, I had a 42-year-old man named Kevin. Kevin came by, and of course he said, well, I see something in my vision, some things floating around. It's been going on for a long time, at least 10 years, and I'm really bugged by it. It's affecting my life. And, we get a lot of these complaints, people saying floaters, and, of course we do our due diligence. We look and do a complete eye exam, vision. We do things like the OCT, MRI scan, visual field. We look at the back of the eye, we look at the retina, we look at the cornea. Everything is fine. Nothing shows up. Otherwise healthy. Really no headaches associated with this. It's easy. If they say headaches, oh, it's migraine, neurologist, right? But no headaches associated. I couldn't even sort of send him off to a neurologist. And so basically, I said, you're fine. And sometimes, unfortunately, as a case may be, if everything is fine, sometimes, just to satisfy the patient that something's being done, we give them some artificial tears and say, here's some tears, use this and go. And so I kind of said, everything's fine. I found nothing here. Here's some tears, and I proceeded to go on to my 75th patient of the day. But he stopped and he said, Dr. Khan, you're the 5th doctor I've seen, and I'm really frustrated. I know I'm not crazy. I know this is real. I don't know what's going on, and my GP told me that if you can't figure it out, no one can. And as I was at the door, that stopped me. And sometimes in life you go through things and something just hits you. And I stopped and I went back in, and that's why I'm always 2 hours behind. I went back in and I went and I spoke to him and got more details about exactly what's going on, established a pattern, and realized that there's something really real going on here. And this is about 2 years ago, and this is me being an ophthalmologist, had not heard of Visual Snow at all. Okay, and I basically went online, found a 2014 paper that sort of talked about Visual Snow, spoke to a neurology colleague, and instantly I became the regional or the community expert in my area. And that's how my journey with Visual Snow started, and that's how that's how this article kind of changed my life, basically, in the sense that because I was the only one that was known to see patients with visual snow in the area, even though the number wasn't very high, my hospital was contacted by a reporter of our version of the New York Times, which is the Toronto Star newspaper. And she basically spoke to me. She said, I've spoken to 3 different ophthalmologists, and I'm speaking to you now, and nobody seems to know what this is. They all say it's floaters or it's something else, and you're the only one that does, so I'll just focus on you. And then, so the rest is history, and this article has brought me closer to the world. I've been to 40 different countries over the last 10 years, taught medicine and surgery all over the world, operated everywhere, and met a lot of people. But this article and visual snow actually exposed me to the rest of the world like no one has, and or nothing has, I should say. And I've had emails from Norway, Finland, from Vietnam, even from Egypt, about people who suffer from visual snow. So really, the whole thing has given me a lot of clarity. And as Thomas Leonard said, clarity affords focus. It allows us to be focused so we can go on and get the job done and make a difference and find out some solutions. So, what focus did for me was it exposed me, among many things, to a wonderful father and son team of Nolan and Travis. Travis is the dad, and Nolan is a beautiful, cute 8-year-old boy.
I saw squares, and I didn't think it was right. Thought there was something wrong with my eyes. I just see dots, and it happens when I'm thinking of it or it's dark. Like in the shade, I see it quite a bit, but like in the sky right now, since it's bright, I don't see it.
When Nolan said that it woke him up and he was scared, I'm going, well, what did we watch? Was it some scary movie? He's seen a ghost or something like that. And it wasn't for a while until then that he explained what it was kind of looked like, and he was explaining it to his mom, and I'm going, oh, well, okay. Now it's starting to make sense. Not thinking at all that you maybe would have that same thing.
I thought that no one else had it and someone else knows how it feels like.
Fortunately, a lot of great minds and great scientists have linked this, by doing PET scan imaging, MRI scans, and have actually linked it to an area in the brain, in the occipital cortex, that actually has activity going on that could account for these kind of symptoms.
I'm just hoping that if it's acknowledged and there are people that have it, and say they are kids and they need extra time for reading, or they've got these limitations where if you put them in a dark classroom, they're going to be distracted because they're seeing these spots. So be cognizant of that and hopefully keep them in an environment that avoids those kind of things or can help support them. That would make me the happiest, is those things where, now when you're pushing 40 and you're looking back at all the things that you maybe could have changed. Would that have changed anything? Probably not. And that's one thing that I hope everybody understands, is everybody's got challenges to overcome, but would it have been nicer or easier, or could you make it nicer or easier for our kids and the next generation? That's the thing that I would care about more than anything.
The story of Travis and Nolan is classic, and it's really, the symptoms are classic, but I think what's really interesting is how the son had it first, went to his mother, and the mother went to dad, and then dad picked it up. So the son got diagnosed himself with it, sort of, and then the father said, well, you know what, I've had this all my life. And then I think that the fact that this family has gone from not knowing what's going on to realizing that they have something, and to seeking help for it, and then getting reassurance that yes, they have something, it is real, and that there is hope that sometime in the future they can find ways to either cure it or make it better.
So I want to thank Nolan and Travis. It was a really wonderful thing they did, agreeing to be filmed, knowing that this would be presented at this conference. And the amazing thing is, just before I presented, I was approached by a father who said that his 8-year-old son has the same condition. And it's amazing that that these stories are very common, or more common than we think. And this is a case where the son indirectly diagnosed himself and his father. So it's an amazing story. And visual snow is not an unconventional, is an unconventional condition. Okay, it's not a conventional condition. It's an unconventional condition. It's not very common. The symptoms are also not common, but they're also not tangible in that they're not something you can grab and hold on to. So you need unconventional solutions. This is a trip of me in Mongolia when I went to Mongolia a few years ago, and this is a statue of Genghis Khan. And basically, Genghis Khan, this is about a 50-foot statue. I'm just at the top of it. That's why it looks the size it is. But if you know anything about the Mongolian Empire, about 800 years ago, they conquered the world. The largest contiguous empire known to mankind it has been the Mongolian Empire. It stemmed from the Pacific Ocean to Europe and down to Asia. I'm getting to a point. Basically, it was 1 million people that conquered the world through very unconventional means. They basically were on horseback, swords, and they had some strategies, I'm not going to go into now, in the way they basically conquered all these lands with advanced technologies. The point being is that they use unconventional solutions to conquer, and we can conquer visual snow by having unconventional means. Can you press play again for me, please? Thank you. So, visual snow syndrome, what is it? I'm not going to spend a lot of time because really the pioneers of visual snow syndrome are here. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time in basically telling you what it is, but just to summarize it. Now just picture how this can be for someone who lives through this. Pretty distracting. And basically this is how it should be, right? So there's a way to get to this point. But what is visual snow? So just quickly, it's basically, there's a diagnostic criteria now that we've been able to establish of having visual snow-like symptoms, plus 2 out of 4 of any of the following: Phalaenopsis, enhanced entopic phenomena, photophobia, or nyctalopia. And I know that these have been defined by the other speakers, so I won't bother going too much into them. But I mean, this is an example of entopic phenomena where you see these floating things in your vision. Obviously, photophobia is bright sunlight. And this is an example of nyctalopia where you have decreased vision at nighttime. And you can see how it's, how having good night vision, you can see the rest of the world, whereas at nighttime, it's hardly visible. People have used different things, and Matthew's going to talk about treatments, but there's anticonvulsants, antihypertensives, steroids, 2 different successes. But what has also worked for a few of my patients, and I really, really believe in this, is that you also looking at alternative therapies like yoga, meditation, focusing on relaxation techniques, on trying to eliminate any distractions and any stimuli. Using visual alterations like the appropriate tinted sunglasses. I know Matthew has a pair on right now that he'll talk to you guys about. And I mean, other sort of visual altering experiences. Not the LSD kind. Although, mind you, marijuana is legal in Canada now, just for those that don't know. But we have a pretty groovy prime minister. I don't know if groovy is a term that we can still use or it's still in vogue. I'm sure the young people can sort of, I'm probably dating myself using groovy, but anyways. Now, a message to my colleagues, coming back to why I'm talking to. So what do doctors know? Well, not a lot, unfortunately, and that's why this is a team effort. We need you guys. We need to work together to come to, to discover solutions and what to do with this. I did a survey, which actually is still work in progress. My residents and medical students are working on it right now. But we surveyed physicians in my area. Now, this was after my article. So, unfortunately, I should have done it beforehand. I didn't have the foresight to do so. But this after. And the article actually went kind of viral locally, at least. And so people knew about it more. But even then, overall, we looked at about 50 or so physicians, MDs of all kind, and 20% of these physicians knew what visual snow syndrome is. I mean, the rest were guessing, but really kind of knew what it is. Looking at ophthalmologists and optometrists, so the eye doctors, only about 25% of eye doctors knew what visual snow syndrome is. And even when they knew it, they didn't actually know any diagnostic criteria. They just kind of knew, you know what, this is what it is, and they were able to kind of guess it. And I gave them the leeway of doing that. Now, the gatekeepers to the healthcare system in Canada, and I'm sure here as well, are the GPs and the family physicians, right? Only about 10% of these people knew, what visual snow syndrome is. Now, what about the symptoms? I mean, most of us know photophobia and nyctalopia. Most of us, know night blindness. But what about Phalaenopsis, which is the after image, and the entopic phenomena? Okay, what about this? How many of us knew this? Well, 0% of general practitioners and family physicians knew about these two symptoms, which are part of the diagnostic criteria of visual snow syndrome. Okay, so that was key. I mean, these numbers are not good enough. We can't accept these numbers as a medical community, as a community in general. We cannot accept them, and they have to be better. So what now? So, awareness is power. Is wisdom, is courage, is action. This is actually my quote, so there's nobody quoted in this, but it's basically awareness is power, okay, and wisdom, courage, and action, okay? So just being aware is half the battle. And we as healers and you as public have to be aware of this and have to take the steps to sort of, educate ourselves. And, typically, many of my colleagues have used a tried, true, and tested approach. We've used conferences, lectures, books. Yes, they still do exist. And the internet to acquire knowledge. But now, I mean, obviously the next phase of learning has been social media, whether it's Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, and Twitter, and so on and so forth. But social media has been very powerful. This is an example of what's happened with what Sierra and the Visual Snow Conference has done with social media. It's fantastic. If you go to the Instagram site, you'll see all these celebrities, all this awareness, and that's fantastic. But there's two facts. One is that visual snow is not a first world condition, right? Maybe obesity is, but visual snow is not. And therefore, it requires global solutions. Two is that 51% of the world has access to internet, which means what about the other 4 billion or so who are without internet? How do you get to them? 2.5 billion use social media, which is fantastic, and you can get to 2.5 billion people. But then there's 5 billion people who don't use social media in the world. And so how do you get to them? So in other words, we have to think of other ways as well, along with social media. So how do we reach more people? And again, looking at unconventional solutions. So among them is that there's one thing that 96% of the world does or has or is exposed to. Does anybody know what it is? That's mobile, okay? You will go to the poorest area in India, you'll see a street vendor selling vegetables on a cart, but he has a cell phone, right? And so 96% of the world has mobile access. So this is something we can also use. For example, we can partner up with the cell phone providers, send text messages. I mean, whatever the case may be. And this is a big problem. I've got a friend of mine who's a child psychiatrist, travels the world giving lectures on child psychiatry. And he says that and I was speaking about visual snow, and he's seen some patients, some kids who may have visual snow, but have been diagnosed with other psychiatric problems. Data collection, Matthew is a data guy. I mean, really, machine learning, data analytics is very key. Medicine has been among the slowest industries to embrace digital transformation, and that's something that the guys like Matthew can really be pioneers in doing. And I'll conclude with a story of blepharospasm. So benign essential blepharospasm is a condition that is very near and dear to my heart. Does everybody know what it is? Okay, so it's basically patients going like this uncontrollably, blinking like this constantly, like that. They can't drive, they can't read, they can't see, they can't do it. They're constantly like this in a constant flux of blinking to the extent where they're basically blind. And so basically, 40 years ago, people thought these people had significant mental illnesses. They were treated with antipsychotics, with admission into mental hospitals, with massive surgeries where they actually took the facial nerve out, leaving these patients with horrible facial paralysis. Everything was used. Nobody knew what this condition was, right? And then slowly through research, through awareness, people accidentally discovered Botox helps these patients and alleviate their spasms and control their spasms. Basically, not a cure, but a treatment, which changed their lives. And then, a few years later, the Blepharospasm Research Foundation was established. And again, back then we didn't have internet, we didn't have social media, but through conferences, the word got out. A Canadian chapter opened up, a European chapter opened up. People gave lectures about it around the world. It was in the media. People organized conferences just like this. And there was an initial, in the 80s, a Blepharospasm Research Foundation conference just like this one. And then eventually, it's gotten to a point where it's very well known. These patients are helped and treated on a daily basis. I see about 500 to 600 patients per year, injecting them every 3 months with Botox. There's courses given in Asia, in India, in Pakistan, in the Middle East, in South America, all over on how to inject Botox for these patients. So it's a well-known condition now. And I think this is where I want Visual Snow to go. And this is where it will go, I think. And this is a really good first step. The Visual Snow Conference is the first step. What we're doing is the first step. And I think that Robert Frost wrote that all roads diverge. Sorry, 2 roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So this is really an untraveled road, and we will make a difference. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for being here.